All right, let's just start from the beginning. I got kind of messed up the last time. Hey, it's Eric here. I'm with Steel Wheels, and just want to give a big shout of appreciation to the folks working really hard at the call center in the Philippines. Um, it's really amazing what you guys did for me. I know that it's just been a tremendous time right now for you. I've talked with some other Airbnb people, but the that it's been really hard. You've just been totally swamped at your call center, and just want to take a moment to kind of tell people about my experience and why I just think Airbnb is totally awesome and that you guys really rocked it through this. Okay, so I'm disabled. I decided to take a trip through Europe to kind of challenge, hey sweetheart, to challenge myself and put myself out of my comfort zone. Boy, did I have no idea how much that would come into play. So I landed in Amsterdam. I had booked 23 different cities over a period of 65 days, 60 days or so. I still had 10 days to cover that I hadn't booked cities for, and wound up um, wound up landing in Amsterdam. And my first guest, my plan was to just kind of like review each one of my lodging experiences, and if it wasn't any good, I wasn't gonna like talk about it, but I just kind of wanted to like look into stuff. My first place was great, um, and then things just started getting weird. And so I was there from the till the 7th of April. On the morning of the 7th of March. So on the morning of the 7th of March, I got all my stuff packed together, and I went down to the train station at Amsterdam Central, and got on a night train, or got on a train to Munich. And in Munich, I changed trains and got on a night train that went into Ljubljana and dropped me off in Ljubljana first thing in the morning. Wound up getting into. I enjoyed the place I was at in Ljubljana. The host was wonderful, and I started to get this vibe that like all these hosts were going to be kind of like this. They were all super hosts. It was one of the criteria I used when I did my bookings. I just figured, what the heck, I'll pay a little extra, because generally they're a little bit more than the comparable size and location and accommodations, whatnot. The superhost may be a little bit more. I didn't feel like it was a big deal. So I had booked with Superhost all the way through, and they really turned out to be Superhost. So the first host was wonderful. They weren't in town, but they were able to help me with translations with the lady who was responsible for taking care of the apartment. She spoke Russian and Ukrainian. So interesting, but it was really, the language was no barrier to getting what I needed. And then it just, things started to kind of change. And I got on the train leaving out of Ljubljana and went into Croatia. And crossing into the border into Croatia was the first time I'd had a sense that something was up. And maybe it was just because we were leaving border control, or there was border control, but we actually stopped just as we got to the border between Slovenia and Croatia, and they came on, stamped passports, and went through the whole process there. Nobody was wearing any masks, and they didn't take a temperature. Got to my location in Zagreb, and this wonderful apartment, and everything started going south. It just like, as soon as I checked in, the apartment was wonderful, the host was wonderful, but right away the host in the next city canceled. And because the way my trip was laid out, I was actually going through Bosnia, which is kind of a hard country to get through. There's not a lot of easy ways in and out, and it's hard to leapfrog a city, especially for me. My travel plans put me at a certain amount of travel each day, and this made it a lot further and a lot rougher of a trip for me. I didn't want to go further, especially not with them. I had a good feeling they were going to close the border to Bosnia, and lo and behold, they did a couple days later. So I'm on the phone to Airbnb. I should mention that before the trip, the borders had closed to Italy, and I was able to get out of staying in Bari and Rome without any extra charges. I was able to cancel those and did not see any extra charges for that. But so now I'm I'm in Zagreb, and my next place to stay has said I can't come. That's Banja Luka. And I had like almost a dozen other places lined up after that before I wound up back in Amsterdam again. And so I had actually scheduled to be uh, so so basically I had to cancel all these reservations, and this was kind of stressful. But I'd been on the phone with folks. Actually, I through chat with Airbnb, I'd been given assurances that if things changed and I wasn't able to travel through a location, that they would be support for me. So even though I didn't get a phone call back right away, I was like, okay, I'd already talked to them. They know this is up. I kind of made them establish a ticket for me because I had a feeling I'd have some trouble with some of my reservations. Did not think I'd need to cancel 10 in a row. And ultimately, that's what happened. In Zagreb, I wound up having to turn around. I booked a place in Vienna, and that turned out to be a really bad. I was just going to go to Vienna and come back to Zagreb. And as I crossed into the border into Austria, talked to a gentleman in Austria telling me about how the police in Slovenia had kicked him out as an Austrian citizen, had told him he had to leave. So things are rapidly changing on the borders, and I'm on the run now from like the borders closing. I don't want to get stuck in some second world country, and I don't mean like Slovenia is a second world country, but the healthcare is not anything. It's not comparable even to what's in Italy, and Italy's having a tremendous issue right now. So anyway, I go to Vienna, and I'm like, this isn't right. I don't feel right about this at all. So I just kept moving, and I got on the next train and went into Cologne, or Cologne as we like to call it, and stayed a night there. Did not sleep that night. So basically 3 nights on the run. And meanwhile, I've got a tech support call out to Airbnb, and they get back to me, and they're like, just let us know what date you've booked out to. And in the meantime, right as I passed through Vienna, I booked a whole month in Delft in the Netherlands. And so in Cologne, I have a layover, and I wind up getting back on the train and going into Rotterdam. Get off the train in Rotterdam. Again, things are changing so rapidly. Go to a coffee shop and then go to a bar, and I've been asked to play some music. I've had my ukulele with me. Been asked to play some music with local musicians. I'm not that great of a musician, but it was just really an honor to like make this huge epic journey out of Zagreb, make it all the way into Amsterdam, finally be able to relax. I've got a beer in my hand, and these guys want to play music with me. And I'm doing a live Facebook chat. And literally, while I'm on the Facebook chat, they're like, that's your last beer. You can't have another beer. I'm like, what? They're like, the bar's closed. Everybody has to leave. And the minister had just closed the bars that day. That, like, literally, after I had my first beer poured, they got on all social media and let everybody know in the Netherlands that all pubs and restaurants, social gathering places were closed. Wow. In the meantime, Airbnb gets back to me, and they're like, just tell us the dates, and we'll take care of it. And over the next couple of days, they canceled Banja Luka, Sarajevo, Split, Dubrovnik, Bar in Montenegro, Belgrade, Budapest, Bucharest, Sofia, Thessaloniki, and Patras. They canceled all of those for me. Backed out all of the charges, the service charges, so there were no service charges on all of those reservations. They just handled that all for me while I was on the road. It took several days to hear back from them every time I communicated, so I had to be patient, but they took care of everything. I get to Amsterdam, and it's still changing, and now I've got to cancel 4 more, but they're far enough out. I go on, and I'm on chat, and I'm waiting to talk to Airbnb about this, because up until now, it's just not in their policy to cancel like a week before you show up. And that's kind of, they got to protect the hosts, but nobody's traveling now, right? And so in this period of time, they changed their policy, and they actually put in a way to cancel your reservation online if it's as a result of not being able to travel because of the coronavirus. Anyway, I was able to cancel my next 5 places, which were Warsaw, Krakow, Bratislava, Prague, and then Amsterdam. I also had another, um, and I was able to cancel, but cancel late and not get out of the Vienna one. But honestly, the Vienna one, I'm totally fine to let that go. So at the end of the day, the way this all pans out is I've got maybe a couple $100 I didn't get back that I'm getting in service, I'm getting as a credit. These are like service fees and whatnot, things that they just couldn't back out, or for one reason or another, it was just they couldn't like zero out how much I owed them. That might be a sticking point for some people, but I booked over $4,500 with them, not counting the month that I booked in Delft, and I haven't gotten to that yet. Because in Delft, 6 days into a 33-day stay at Delft, that all by my State Department, I'm a U.S. citizen, that all U.S. citizens are to return home now, or shelter in place and be prepared to be there an extended period of time, an indefinite period of time, with and not to expect any help from the U.S. government if you get in any kind of issue or trouble overseas. I'd never heard anything like that before. I don't think, other than somebody being in a country that we don't have good relations with, that's never been stated for any kind of travel. So that was new, and so I had to jump on a plane and get back to the United States for fear of not being able to get back to the United States. So anyway, long story short, I got back to them on the Delft reservation. I loved my host so much, I actually waited a couple days. I was out of there 8 days into my stay. I waited until the 11th day, and then I canceled. And the host agreed to cancel, which is kind of a criteria they had at that point. Although I think if they hadn't, I could have been cranky. Anyway, it didn't matter. They took care of that too. So I wound up getting majority of the booking I had done in Delft back as well. Throughout this whole process, Airbnb has been tremendous. I wasn't sure about traveling using Airbnb. I have heard horror stories. A friend of mine, somebody I met, who's also in Europe, is going to be there much longer than he planned on. He's actually in the UK, so not technically Europe, I guess. But he's over there, and he's going to have to stay in the south of England for at least 2 months. And he's having trouble getting his money back. He booked through travel agents, and he went through other people, and he just can't get his money back from anybody for anything. And not only has Airbnb come around, but Urail has come around as well, and has offered to exchange passes and basically make good on the amount of time I didn't use. So I'm not losing any money for any travel I didn't do. I didn't have to buy travel insurance, and from what I understand, the travel insurance people bought is not covering this. It's just not covering it. So I don't know what's up with that. Everybody that I have heard of in Europe travels with travel insurance. Frankly, traveling with Airbnb in this situation, they have just done a stellar job. So thank you, Airbnb, and the people at the call center in the Philippines are fantastic. Keep up the good work. All right. Thanks a lot. That's it.